The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
This is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
it might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the Sports Guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report, round 2 of the NFL playoffs in the books. Coming up in a little bit, Chad Millman talking about the Vegas lines and our friend Mike Lombardi. This might be a two-parter, I'm not sure yet. Batting first, our friend Cousin Sal. What's happening?
What's happening with you? Wow, you sound down in the dumps. Your team's in the AFC Championship for the 47th year in a row.
I'm still confused by Jodie Foster's speech. It's hard for me to concentrate on anything that's happening today. I still don't know what happened. 12 hours later. I don't know. Something happened. I just don't know. I'm not smart enough to figure it out.
He's dating Mel Gibson. I think that's what I took from it. I don't know.
Mel Gibson gets a lot of chances.
Well, he really does.
He really does. I was thinking about it last night. Like, he's just at the Golden Globes saying hi to everybody. Yeah. And there's some Jewish people at the Golden Globes, right?
And I agree with, Jodie Foster. I was like, what? But do you think he has that much respect for the homosexual plight, with how we know how he behaves with the Jews and the blacks and everything? I don't know.
It was pretty crazy. It was a unique night. But let's talk about football because round 1 was terrible. Round 2 was pretty great. The only semi-stinker, I guess, was the Pats game.
2 classic games.
2 classics.
And then one game that was maybe the best NFL team we've ever seen in the Niners coming out. It wasn't necessarily a great game, but like, what the hell was that? And then, the Pats were sort of a clunker. And I need to apologize to you. You called me way overconfident. I hadn't seen you that confident in many, many years in this Patriots game. And you said we should bet the over 17.5 as the largest lead in the game. And I having that exactly the opposite in my prop section Grantland column, try to talk you out of it, and I apologize for doing so. I mean, they really handled it.
You didn't successfully talk me out of it. I'll just put it that way.
Oh, good. Okay.
I love the Pats yesterday, and it mostly was because I just didn't believe in Schaub. And I actually thought that if you play that game 10 times, I think they win by more than what the final margin was, probably 8 of the times. That they let him hang around. There's a couple chances where it just seemed like they were going to blow the door open, and then Tennessee would just come back in. Foster played really well.
Yeah. Texans. Yeah.
But
it's weird because last year I think we agreed that when the Texans lost, what did they lose to last year? Did they lose to the Ravens?
Yeah.
Yeah, they lost to the Ravens, and it was close, and we both said, well, if Matt Schaub was there, this team could go to the Super Bowl. This is the best team. And now Matt Schaub goes to New England. It's like, oh, they don't really have a chance, and they sort of did. Yeah, like you said, Foster kept them in there, but
they didn't.
Go ahead.
He doesn't throw it downfield. I mean, even the longest pass, he threw a couple passes, maybe like 18 yards down the field to Andre Johnson, but it's pretty easy to stop. And then you look at what Flacco was able to do against Denver, and how many times he was able to stretch the field. And then he finally came through on that crazy play at the end of the game, but. I don't think you can beat the Patriots unless you can really go deep, which is what scares me so much about this Baltimore game. It's just a good matchup for Baltimore.
I don't think, in general, I don't think you can win a lot of these playoff games without going deep. I mean, Atlanta certainly wouldn't have been able to beat Seattle.
Yep.
Brady's not afraid to let it go. Flacco is great. He seems to have heavy receivers. Kaepernick, I don't know. I don't know what he's doing. I don't really get. We discussed this and how he wins. It is like a Nerf game where you send everyone deep and have the fat guy count 5 Mississippi, and if that guy rushes in, then you just run. And that's their solution to 3rd and 12. And it seems to work every time.
Anyone who's played video games, when you have an athletic quarterback, you always run the play with the 5 receivers. When you it's like a Hail Mary play, and you just wait for them to get deep enough, and then you run the quarterback. And that's actually what the Niners were doing, it seemed like.
Right.
And I don't know what Green Bay was doing in that game. my fear with that game was that their defense was just going to get shredded because you knew their defense wasn't that good. Minnesota had put up 37 points on them in Week 17, and you're just kind of hoping that Kaepernick was going to look like a first-year quarterback. He threw that first pick six, and that was, I think, the other game was still going on.
Yeah, it was, because I didn't see it. I was still watching the other game. They had to cut in and show that, yeah.
Yeah, and when that happened, I was like, oh, great. Oh, first-year Kaepernick showed up. This is good. Oh, Rodgers will finish this now.
Yeah.
And then that was it. The Niners
That's exactly what we said. We said,
yeah.
well, what quarterback do you trust down 7-0? You know, I'm like, and I think we thought, well, the Niners might be done if they're down 7-0. It was exactly the opposite of what we said.
I was banking on.
He looks like the lead singer of Anthrax, and he may get a Super Bowl ring.
I was banking on the FU performance from Rodgers, and he just didn't have a chance. They gave up 500 yards.
Yeah.
He missed one throw. I don't know if it would have made a difference. They were down 14. He had Jennings. He just missed him. Can't miss the throw, especially in a game like that when the other team's scoring every time they get the ball. But even if they score there, they're down 7. San Francisco gets the ball back. I think they just score again. They were doing whatever they wanted.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, you look at we mail each other the lines as soon as we know what the matchups are because it's just too hard in this day and age, especially in Twitter, not to know what the line is. I thought that Niners game was just like, wow, what a great matchup for them going into Atlanta. Like, they have to be favored. We're going to get to the lines in a little bit, but when you watch Kaepernick last week outdoors, now you think of him indoors in Atlanta. It's hard to imagine a scenario where he doesn't put up 40 points after watching what Russell Wilson did, right?
Well, I think this is the one. I can't think of a time where the home team, a team had a chance to play at home, and they're actually probably happier that they're going on the road. Like, the Niners would have a fit with Seattle, I think.
Yes.
And and you know what? I think we'll get to the lines in a minute, but I think they're favored by more at Atlanta than they would be home against Seattle, right? We'll get to that, but
I think they would have been in San Francisco after the way Wilson played, assuming Atlanta doesn't score in the last 30 seconds there. I think they're favored by 3.
Yeah.
Maybe
right.
3 and maybe 3.5, but probably 3. And we should talk about that Seattle game quickly because I just don't know what they were doing in the first half. I don't know what took them so long to just spread it out and throw the ball. Atlanta had no pass rush, and they don't have a very good secondary. And it was pretty clear that anytime Seattle threw the ball, it was going to be successful. And they waited too long. And I feel like if they played that game again next week, Seattle would know how to beat them now.
Well, did it have to do with what everyone was talking about, the West Coast team coming east? I think Seattle was 0-3 playing the early game on Sunday.
Oh, you think they were asleep? Yeah, they were on West Coast time.
Took them a while to wake up. I mean, they were definitely out-toughed by Atlanta, which surprised me.
In the first half. They were able to run the ball. Yeah.
And then, I mean, really almost through three quarters. But I mean, Ryan and Brady, say what you will about and how the last half hour of that Atlanta game ended, and that was just craziness. But those passes on third down by Brady and Ryan, like just threading the needle to Gonzalez and Roddy White and Lloyd and Welker for Brady, like that was the difference to me. I couldn't believe some of these passes that were being completed. And again,
I thought Ryan was really good. First interception wasn't his fault.
Yeah.
It seemed like that Gonzalez stopped on him. Second interception was his fault and was a bad throw and a throw he shouldn't have made. And I think if Seattle goes to win that game, and that's really probably one of the 3 or 4 biggest playoff jokes ever. And then
sure,
everybody blames Matt Ryan, fair or unfair. Barnwell wrote about it today. I think it would be a little more fair than unfair just because they had the ball. They had such a big lead. They couldn't make plays. The interception he threw was really bad. It gave Seattle so much momentum.
It was bad, but your defense can't give up 3 touchdowns at home.
No. I mean,
you can't do it.
They were going to give up a touchdown every time.
Just like people are going to blame Peyton Manning. Like they had him. What is it? 97% chance that Flacco pinned his own 10 with no timeouts and a little over a minute or under a minute. I mean, come on.
Right.
That's not Manning's fault. I don't care too much about defending the Mannings, but that's
the there were a lot of narratives I wasn't crazy about. One was blaming Manning just because he did his job and they were going to win the game.
Yeah.
I was actually okay with them going to overtime because first of all, the way the overtime rules are where you both get the ball unless the first team scores. Mm-hmm. But it was 9 degrees. Manning could not throw the ball downfield at all. And watching that game, I thought we watched the first 3 quarters together, and it seemed to me the longer that game went on, the longer Baltimore realized how to play them. Yeah. And he wasn't throwing downfield. And eventually they realized, oh, this guy can't throw more than 15 yards downfield. Let's move everybody up. They started sending weird blitzes at him. I thought they had him rattled, and you throw in those 2 special teams touchdowns. And
yeah, it might not have even been a game if those 2 special teams touchdowns.
Right. Yeah. But so they're on their 20. It's 9 degrees outside. You have a defense that's really kind of figured out how to play him. Their last touchdown drive, the only reason it happened was because they threw that flag 7 seconds after the guy accidentally touched the guy's shoulder, Demaryius Thomas, which was the worst of many terrible calls in that game.
There were some bad ones. It really
I just didn't feel like Denver was playing well.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I think, look, in this day and age where the quarterback is sort of overruling the coach, with RG3 playing, telling Shanahan, I'm in, I don't care what you say, and I think Manning could have said, first 10 at the 20 with 31 seconds left. He would have been able to say if he thought it was the right move. We're gonna go for this. And either
it wasn't the same situation. Matt Ryan was indoors.
Yeah.
And first of all, had to go for it because they were losing. But he was indoors, and Manning was outside. He'd been out. That was a really long game.
Yeah.
It wasn't just 4 quarters, but it was like 4 hours, 4 quarters. And as anybody who was watching it could tell you, it was 5 hours of Dan Deerdorf.
Yeah, it was a lot. It
was a lot of Dan Deerdorf. Let me tell you something. There might be some detox, I think, for a lot of Dan Deerdorf detox. I don't know what drink I have to take, but man, that was a lot of Dan Deerdorf.
No, and the measurements are interminable. They're so long when he's commenting on them. It's too much.
And the instant replays, and he's just got to talk, and he's arguing, and then he's arguing with himself. He says something, and then he's like, no, actually, and then it's like nobody else said anything. You're the only one talking.
Speaking of arguing with yourself, we watched. We had our annual banquet at Shakey's.
Yes. Saturday.
Here, Saturday during that game, and people left the game at various points, and you live a few minutes away, so it wasn't that big a deal. But right after you left, there was a homeless man rooting very hard for both teams, the Broncos and the Ravens. Very, very hard. And excited. I mean, just rooting positively. And I laughed at him. I'm like, this guy is deranged. And then I thought, oh, why is this any worse than rooting for one team? Honestly, in the grand scheme of things, everyone should just root for both teams.
Just root for fun, exciting things to happen.
Yeah. So
the homeless man wasn't Brad, was it?
No.
Oh, sorry. I was confused for a second. So I don't totally blame them for not going for it. And, the lost great play of the weekend was Baltimore got pinned. They were like inside their 10. I'm going to say it was like 3rd and 8. And it became one of those things like if the Ravens don't get a first down here, Denver's going to have the ball at midfield, and Manning's going to get 2 first downs. They're going to win the game. Flacco made an awesome throw to the tight end. Remember that over the middle? Mm-hmm. It was like a 20-yarder to Pitta.
Yeah.
Flacco I thought Flacco was spectacular in that game. And if I'm any team, they're probably going to franchise him. It's probably a moot point, but he's done it now enough in big games where, and he can throw the ball downfield. Like, you can build a certain type of offense around him. He's going to have an occasional game where he just sucks, whatever. It's part of the Flacco package, but I would overpay that guy.
I think so, too. I think he's a great road quarterback. I mean, what more do you want than a guy that can win on the road in the playoffs? And you know what? I sort of think this Ravens team hustles everybody. I think they know what they need to do to get to the playoffs. We hated them all year. We were betting Cincinnati and Cleveland to win the division. We couldn't stand it. We were trying to figure out ways they wouldn't make the playoffs. But I think their thing, and Harbaugh's thing, is, you know what? We'll give the fans a thrill with the 2 Pittsburgh games, and we'll be around 9-6, and then we'll get in. And they were better than that anyway. But
they're almost like one of those veteran NBA teams that just saves itself for the playoffs. How many QBs win that game in Denver in 10-degree weather against a team that's favored by 10 points? Like, how many QBs right now would you take into that game and feel good? Would you take Romo?
Joe Flacco and Tony Romo. It's only two. Who do you got?
Brady, yes.
Yeah.
I think Russell Wilson, yes. I can't believe I'm saying it, but he's just done it too many times now.
Yeah.
He's just fearless, and it doesn't seem like it matters where he plays, if he's outdoors, indoors. He's always going to keep coming.
Well, you love that guy. And you
Rodgers.
Yeah, Rodgers. Yep.
Would you take Peyton Manning on the road in that situation, 9-degree weather? I feel like I would not.
No, I mean, he's home and he couldn't get it done. So I don't, It's tough, though, because that 2 weeks, I really thought they would cut into their momentum, and it did. A slow starting team anyway, Denver usually is. So
the other problem with Denver was the lack of a running game.
Yeah.
And Hillman played pretty well in that game, but, it's all fine and dandy. You have this 11-game winning streak. You're beating up some bad teams, and you win one or two good games. But it was just glaring watching that game. It was like, oh, no Sean Moreno's out. We don't know when he's coming back. It's like, if that's a problem, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
You don't know when no Sean Moreno's coming back. But I thought it was
they should address that. It's too much for Manning to handle. And if that defense falls apart like it did, it's, you ever see a worse game from Champ Bailey? No.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
And that was the other thing is they had Baltimore's offensive coordinator who was just handing the ball to Ray Rice every time a first down for a yard.
Yeah.
I don't know what the final tally was, but it had to have been like 15, 16, 17, 18 times.
Yeah, it was a lot of second and eighth and third and longs.
I was on the fringe of tweeting that Caldwell was working for Peyton Manning as a double agent about 9 times. Yeah. But I thought the Ravens were better. I think if the Broncos had won that game somehow, like my dad and I were texting the next day, like what was a better scenario for the Patriots? Like this Ravens team that knows they can come into New England and win, or going to Denver after watching what Flacco did to that secondary, and where would we have had a better chance of winning?
And I think it is similar to what we just discussed with Atlanta and San Francisco. Like, I think you're better off on the road at that point because the Ravens aren't scared of you. The one thing I'll say is you guys aren't going to take them for granted anymore. Lee Evans is gone, and the kicker Cundiff is gone, and this team is mad, and I think the Patriots have to know that.
That kicker nailed that kick.
Yeah.
It seemed like he was fired up and couldn't wait to kick the game winner.
Yep.
All right, let's look ahead here. Conference championships. For some reason, they had decided this even before they knew where the NFC title game was going to be played. The NFC game is first. And had Seattle won, then the NFC game would have been first in San Francisco. They would have played it at 11 a.m. in the morning Pacific time.
No, noon, you mean? Right? It would be the same time, right? It's noon right now. They wouldn't have changed.
Oh, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, so yeah. So
I think the pregame coverage starts at 11.
The pregame starts. So yeah. So it would have been a noon start, which is just weird. Why wouldn't they start the AFC game first?
I don't know why. There must be some television deal where the AFC gets the late game. Because last year the NFC got it right. It was Giants.
Right.
Niners.
Oh yeah. So the ratings are better the longer the day goes.
Right. Now here's our situation. You are 8-9-2 going into this week against me.
Yep.
You need to win to keep it going.
Yep.
Like you said, 3 p.m. Eastern, San Fran and Atlanta. We sent each other the lines ahead of time, our guesses. I think stupid. I said Atlanta -1. Really dumb.
Oh, Jesus.
Really, really dumb. I know. I don't know why I gave it to the home team. You said,
I had San Fran by 3, and I almost thought about going San Fran 3.5.
Yeah. You said that San Fran by 3, and it is 3.5. So you get that one. And I think there's going to be one of these things where we're going to scramble all week to find someone to take Atlanta. Right?
I guess the case would be they'd have to just make a bunch of plays downfield. I don't think they're going to be able to run on them.
Yeah.
And then hoping Kaepernick. There's a chance Dom Capers just might be one of the 5 or 6 worst defensive coordinators of all time.
Yeah. That was pretty bad.
And that he made Kaepernick look a lot better than he actually is.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the one thing that I was worried about with that, I really thought Green Bay was going to win, but I was worried about Harbaugh versus that Green Bay coaching staff, and they were just so well prepared. I mean, I feel like you play that game 10 times, San Fran probably wins 9 of the 10. You might have one game where Rodgers just goes crazy, but
and like we said, they can come from behind. That was like the one thing I was worried about. Like Kaepernick keep it together, and
how does like if you're a Seattle fan, how bummed out are you about that game on a scale of 1 to 10?
It's terrible. It's to come all the way back.
Is it a 10? Are you a 10?
Yeah, I think a 10. I saw Russell Wilson back then. He's spectacular, and you know this. I mean, he's got guys defenders converging on either side, and he couldn't be cooler, and then just knows exactly when to step up. He's like, all right, I can run for 15 right now, or if I don't see someone 30 yards away open.
That play that he made when they were down 7 on the final drive, when it looked like he was going to get sacked,
Rolling
and he did
left,
the U-turn, rolled left, and found the guy down the sidelines. I mean, first of all, Brady just gets sacked.
Yeah.
It was definitely, I think Kaepernick might be able to make that play.
Yeah.
And that's about it. But man,
that was great. That was
he,
let me just say, when you were bummed out. You actually called me. You were with him in Atlanta. He's your boy, Russell Wilson.
I was sitting in the spouse's box, yes.
Yeah, in the spouse's box, and you left me a message. Hold on, let me see if I can have it here.
Cousin Sal, sports guy here in Atlanta calling you. I may have been overserved a little. I'm currently sloshed on apple martinis and peach schnapps, so excuse me if this message is more confusing than a Jodie Foster sacquilite. You know what the hell I'm trying to say. And I can honestly tell you, next to the time I witnessed Mo Vaughn devour a baby goat whole right outside the Big Dig, this could possibly be the worst day of my pathetic life. Right now, my boyfriend Russell Hustle and Bustle Man Muscle Wilson is more upset than CeeLo Green when the hometown buffet shuts its doors. And why wouldn't he be? Brings the Seahawks all the way back from 27-7 down. They take the lead just to see a season end on some little white guy kicking a ball into a net. Well, just like Robin Williams did to Matt Damon and Good Will Hunting. After the game, I grabbed Russell Hustle and Bustle Man Muscle by the buttocks real tight and repeated, "It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault." And then the calm Russell Hustle and Muscle Band Muscle Bustle down, I sang him a lullaby and it went like this. Hush, little Russell, don't say a word. Sports guy's gonna buy you a mockingbird. If that mockingbird don't sing, sports guy gonna get you a Super Bowl ring. And if that Super Bowl ring turns brass, sports guy's gonna buy you front row tickets to see Lance Bass. And if those front row tickets to Lance, I can't do it. I can't continue with these sappy lyrics. It makes me so sad. Sports is guy over and out. I love you, Magic and Jalen.
Wow.
Yeah,
that was pretty emotional.
That was impassioned, yeah.
I blame the Seahawks for screwing up that end of the first half, for calling a terrible timeout with like 18 seconds left.
Yeah.
When they could have just spiked the ball.
That was bad.
That was really bad. How many times do we have see teams screw that up? And then
the field goal, the timeout, enough already. I mean, how many years before we
the ice and the kicker?
Yeah, the de-icing the kicker by the opposing coach.
I feel like the better move is to pretend you're going to ice him and not ice him.
Yeah. Yeah.
But couldn't they have run the clock down a little further than 34 seconds before they scored there, or did the Falcons call timeout?
Yeah, they could have. No, the Falcons called it. They could have run it down, but they had plans for an onside kick up 2 points for some reason. So
the Falcons did, yeah.
Yeah, that which was also ridiculous. And let me tell you, I know a lot of people had Seattle plus the points and everything. You think that was a good move. You had the wrong side. That was up 26-7. Snelling catches that pass with 2 minutes left in the third. They go up 26-7. There's no reason to kick the extra point there. There's just no reason. It's not going to be. If it's 27-7, you're banking on Seattle scoring 20 points to tie it. That's what you're safeguarding against. And they're not going to score 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals in 14 minutes or whatever. Just a dumb move. I mean, and plus he's jumping off sides. Richard Sherman's like going through this epileptic seizure where he's jumping off sides, and now it's at the 1.5 yard line. Now it's at the 5/8 yard line. Like, where do you have to put the ball before it's worth it to just go for a 2-point conversion when you should anyway?
My only counter to that would be if you go up 20, like if you're up 19, let's say you don't get it.
Yeah.
Then you're 8 points, 3 points away from a tie game.
That's, I think, even more outrageous than 4 scores.
the point is, you'd only need 2 touchdowns to tie versus 3. You need 2 touchdowns, 2 points, and a field goal.
All right. Well, if your defense gives up 2 2-point conversions, 2 touchdowns, and a field goal in the fourth
You
quarter,
deserve to lose anyway.
you deserve to lose. But
Yeah.
I'm mad at Mike Smith. That was bad.
I actually was very, very focused on the Seattle comeback because they had the ball starting the second half.
Mm-hmm.
I knew they would start throwing the ball. I knew they would start moving the ball. They made it 21-7. I thought, this is it. It's going to happen. Then when the Falcons scored and they made it 27-7 or whatever, it was like, oh, man, well, that was fun. And they just would not go away. God bless Russell Wilson for such a fun season.
It was great, and almost everyone would rather see him next week if you're not a Falcons fan against San Francisco outdoors than this game we're presented with. But he's going to have some career.
Well, will we ever figure out how they went 40 yards and 2 passes when Seattle knew they had to throw the ball?
When Atlanta went 40 yards and 2 passes? Yeah. At the very end, yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah, that was bad time.
What defense was Seattle in?
I don't know.
We're going to ask Mike Lombardi these questions when he comes on, but that was the underrated, amazing part of that game. It wasn't like Matt Ryan was threading the needle with these sports movie throws. He had 2 wide open guys that he threw the ball to. And I don't know what Seattle was doing on either of those plays.
There's something to be said about these secondaries, these playoff secondaries with less than a minute to go in a lot of these big games. I don't get it. But when we're looking at it, I mean, you're probably thinking Marshawn Lynch doesn't fumble there. Like maybe they get another shot at the half-yard line. Seattle's better off. They run another play, run some more time off. But
I didn't even think of that.
You can't even think like that, I guess.
No, but I mean, you're right.
Yeah.
Because if they're on the 1-inch line, they get one more play.
Yeah.
Then you're down to like 27 seconds, something like that.
Yeah.
Tough one. Poor Seattle. Seattle's had some tough losses over the years, man.
Yeah. Yeah, but they're going to have an NBA team. All the Starbucks. They're fine.
All right. So we like San Francisco now 3.5. Really tough to make a case for Atlanta. If that line goes to 4, I'm going to have to go to breakfast with myself and spend 2 hours trying to figure out how Atlanta can cover that.
Yeah, I know. And I could see it going to 4. I mean, this, like I said, it's going to be one of those things where be hard pressed to find an expert who takes Atlanta.
Well, Atlanta's defense sucks. It just sucks. And it was the most frustrating thing about having Seattle in that game yesterday is they're just running the ball into the line. It's like, what are you guys doing? Throw the ball. This team can't stop anybody.
When Abraham's not around, it is tough.
They have no pass rush whatsoever. It was obvious. They had no pass rush.
It's going to be interesting. All right, so you won that game.
Yep.
6:30 p.m. Eastern time, Sunday. Baltimore,
cold.
New England, a rematch. I could see this for the next 3 years as the AFC champ. I mean, I could see I'd be okay seeing it for the next 3 years. It's
a great rivalry. I said this on the pod after Baltimore won, I think like week 5, 31-29. I was saying this is the Pats' best rivalry right now. And some people were emailing in like, how can you say that? And it's like this is the team that has given them the most trouble over the past few years out of any AFC team. Really since it was the Colts and Manning until about, I would say, 2008.
Yeah.
And then
Jets
it's really been the Ravens.
Win against you guys a couple of years ago, but yeah, that's more or less a one-sided rivalry.
Yeah, starting with during the 2007 during the 18-1 season, that Monday night game in Baltimore when Baltimore really should have won and we got a penalty that kept the game alive. We ended up scoring, but starting there, it's been a really good rivalry.
Yeah. Really good.
Anyway, I said 8.5.
You said 8.5. Now, if I get this one, we tie for the week, and I win for the year. You said 8.5. I said 7.5. The line is 9. So we're 9-9-2 going into Super Bowl week.
Well, first of all,
congratulations.
So we would have been 8-9-3, and
I guess
so I still could have tied.
Yeah, I could have done no worse unless we moved it to the Pro Bowl. Yeah.
So this one is, what is it, 9?
It's 9.
And
it was 7 last year at this time. And what did it end? It ended up 9.5 or 10 last. I just think the Ravens are a much better matchup than the Texans to to give it just a 1 point difference or a half
I
point.
totally agree. They have a history of playing the Pats well.
Yeah.
No Gronkowski is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
No Woodhead possibly, although it didn't matter yesterday. But
what is it with the no Gronkowski? Because I'm all over it too. I'm with you. Like they should be better with Gronkowski. But 35 versus 34 points a game. That's what we're.
Well, part of it's competition. I mean, I think the competition was a little easier during the non-Gronkowski games, but I just tell you, like, he's the second best player in the team other than Brady.
Yeah.
And the whole offense this year was geared around having him, Hernandez, Welker, and Lloyd as the four guys with the running back, and just anybody could catch the ball at any point in the field. So it's not the same. And
Great
he's
game.
also a really good blocker.
Yeah. It's a great game. Very excited for it.
Pollard coming back. Hey, apparently this is Ray Lewis's last season too.
Hadn't heard anything about that.
Yeah.
But I know Ray Lewis spent an hour and a half trying to track down Peyton Manning to tell him he's a good player yesterday.
Ray Lewis tore his triceps 2.5 months ago. He played a double overtime game in cold weather, 9-degree weather, made 17 tackles.
Yeah.
It's an injury
It's
that
easy
usually
when you
you're out for
carry
a
a knife.
year.
Everyone's like, well, all right, fine, I'll go down. You tackle me.
Stop it. You got in trouble last week. You made fun of Ray Lewis.
I don't care. I told you, I'll say it to his face. Show up at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so teaser potential?
So San Fran just to win, getting a couple points, and you like New England giving the field goal?
No, my point is there's no possible teaser this week.
Oh, I see, yeah.
There's parlays.
Yeah. Unless you go Harbaugh boys on a teaser. 15's a lot.
So here are the possible Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Baltimore, San Fran, Harbaugh Bowl.
Harbaugh Bowl. That's fun.
New England, San Fran, Harbaugh versus Belichick. Then you have the Brady, Montana. Brady grew up in the Bay Area. You have all those storylines.
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore versus Atlanta.
Oh, my dog likes that one. Wow.
Baltimore, Atlanta.
Yeah.
Probably the least exciting of the four matchups.
Yeah, that's the least exciting, and then Baltimore, New England is the second least exciting.
No, it would be Atlanta, New England.
Atlanta, New England, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, Atlanta, New England, though, you'd still have Atlanta's never won a Super Bowl. You'd have Brady.
Mm-hmm.
Brady getting in there becomes kind of Brady and Belichick just going for the fourth Super Bowl and team of this century, all that stuff.
I think just Atlanta screws it up because with Ray Lewis making it, they'll kill us with that for 2 weeks too.
Baltimore, Atlanta, I guess, would be heavy on the Ray Lewis.
Yeah.
So he becomes the dominant guy that week. And then Flacco, when are they going to sign him? Mm-hmm. All that stuff. I'll tell you, I would go big on Flacco. I can't, I've definitely flip-flopped a little bit on him over the years, but he finally won me over in that Denver game. Yeah, it's such a huge position. Like, look at that. Look at what Schaub did in that Houston game.
Of course.
He just wasn't good enough. And we knew it from the first quarter. We actually knew it heading into the game, but he wasn't good enough. And you just can't win with a quarterback like that on the road. He can't make enough throws to keep you in that game. Flacco can make every type of throw.
Could Flacco be throwing a Welker next year in Jacksonville?
Oh, stop it. I was thinking Cleveland.
Cleveland?
I think if you're Cleveland, you have all this cap space, and I think it's not going to matter because they're going to franchise him, but you could construct the right offer that would, at the very least, Baltimore would match, but they'd have to get rid of some guys so you're hurting your competition.
Yeah. The right offer would have to include Cleveland playing their home game somewhere else than Cleveland.
Cleveland played their home games in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
In this stadium.
Alberta.
Want to quickly Golden Globes it?
Yeah. I only watched the second half, but it's the best of the award shows, right?
It's pretty good.
They ham it up a little too much, some people, but
I thought it was a very, very enjoyable 3 hours.
Yeah.
I really liked it. I like Ben Affleck and I like Lena Dunham. I wrote a little thing about Affleck for our Golden Globe shoot around today, but
that's good.
People were winning that I like. I was like happy, and it's ultimately a bogus award show. Like
do you think they do it on purpose? They think they give Affleck and Argo the awards because they know they're not getting for the for the Oscars, and same with Lena Dunham for for girls. Probably won't beat Modern Family again. Or maybe it will.
Yeah, they definitely gear it a little bit towards celebrity.
Yeah.
Celebrities are always you're in good shape if you're a famous person and if you have some sort of backstory.
Listen, I like that and I'm taking credit, not me specifically, but our show, Jimmy Kimmel Live, forced Jay Leno out of his despicable cave he never presents. This guy's running scared, Simmons. Never presents any of his things. I like
you think he's feeling the pressure? You guys won last week in the 18-49.
We've won the week. We should retire now, right?
What
Ray Lewis.
Were you guys favored to win the week? What was the line on that?
No, I think we had to be a -1.
You need to win the first night, but not the next three.
It's weird. We won when we had Blake Griffin and Chris Paul, and Dr. Oz on was our biggest clobbering of Leno. It's very strange. We should have those guys on all the time.
Blake Griffin, Chris Paul, and Dr. Oz.
Yeah. We do well. We did well. It's weird seeing like the top 25 markets. This is a little specific for our sports podcast, but the top 25 markets we did very well. And then you see like and then the next day like they're adjusted when you see the overall. And it's like, oh boy, Leno really wins the heartland. Like Oklahoma,
Middle America. Yeah.
Oklahoma is terrified of what we do for some reason.
One last thing and then we'll go.
Yeah,
we didn't talk about it Shakey's. We had a little drama because Brad, who got kicked out of the league before the season started by our friend Cohurst, and he threw a couple sodas.
Mm-hmm.
And basically everybody feared for their lives for about 15 seconds and then stormed out and was outside the room but didn't realize that the staircase that he thought was there was locked. So he either had to come face us all again and walk by us or just jump off the 10-foot fire escape.
Into a dumpster to safety.
Into a dumpster, and that's what he chose. He chose plan B, jump off the 10-foot fire escape.
Yeah.
So there's been some bad blood all year, and then we were worried when Brad showed up at the Shakey's banquet.
And then wrote an email to him and said, I wish you nothing but sadness from this day forward. This is
that was a little harsh. So when he showed up, I think we were all a little worried, and it turned out there was a handshake.
Yeah.
Everything seemed fine. Then Cohurst left, and Brad said something to the effect of, you guys are lucky I didn't go with my original plan. Did not elaborate on what the original plan was, but I assume it would not have been a handshake.
We have to find out what the original plan was. I think Brad was too winded from taking 18 trains from where the hell he lives now to make it to Shakey's. But
I don't know if the original plan was congenial.
No, it probably wasn't. That's never his first thought.
I was thinking that the next night, John Hamm was at the Golden Globes.
Yeah.
He's wearing a tux. He's surrounded by all these celebrities. It had just been 30 hours earlier. He had been with Brad at Shakey's Pizza.
Well, my wife was saying that too. She's like, "Why, John Hamm? Why does he go to Shakey's? What if he's seen there?" I'm like, "Who's going to see him there? Who's ever going to expect him to be there?" And that's not exactly his target audience. He's not going to get recognized either.
It's like that Entourage episode when their emergency meeting place for a secret location was Hamburger Hamlet on Hollywood Boulevard. I would say Shakey's would be a good emergency meeting place for anybody. Anything to plug?
Jimmy Kimmel Live tonight. Ellen DeGeneres, The Bachelor, and One Republic. Later in the week, Rob Lowe, Bryce Harper, Ray Romano, Mark Wahlberg, a whole bunch of stuff. And Grantland on Friday. My prop bets. You and I both had the Ravens to win. That was nice.
Yes.
Some other stuff. And let's lock down the House Eats contest this week. I have people. There's been $10,000 bet on myself and House. A little more
through
on
Sportsbook?
House than me.
Wow.
Yeah, on Sportsbook.com.
What are the odds right now?
If I try to raise $10,000 in a week, I would for like some cause. I could never do it. And these people are betting on a contest. They don't even know what the rules are. So we should lock that down.
What are the odds? I know you've looked in the past 12 hours.
I'm up to plus 140. House is minus 160. He's been as high as minus 200. And I think some money's coming in on me now. And people are wising up.
Well, let me tell you something. We're premiering the second episode of House Eats tomorrow when we took House to Yang Chow's for Chinese food.
It's going to go up, isn't it, the line? All right.
It's going to affect the line.
Really?
And you are going to become a more sizable underdog.
Oh, wow. All right.
That's all I'm going to say. But that premieres tomorrow on the Grantland channel.
Yeah. I may have to hit Shakey's. I should have done something there. All right.
Because we will talk to you on Monday with our guest for the Super Bowl line.
That's it.
Hold on to your seats. Oh, last question. Do we know what the AFC versus NFC line is?
I could check. I think I gave it last week.
Because after yesterday's games, the AFC was only a 2-point favorite over the NFC.
Is that right?
Yeah.
After the game?
After Saturday's games.
Yeah. See, that's
Hold on.
cheating. We shouldn't even really look at this.
Well, we always talk about this, but that line is in more flux than really any other line you can bet on.
And I can't believe people would be betting it that much. 2.5. AFC is 2.5, and 52 is the over/under.
Well, remember we were talking about whether it made sense to buy the Seahawks at 9-1 right before the playoffs,
Right.
and we came to the conclusion it made much more sense just to bet them game by game.
Yeah.
So the Seahawks covered both of their games.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're right. But we would have
And-
bet the money line. We would have bet that was the point of getting the odds on that. You'd have to bet the money line. Right?
Yeah, but I mean, let's say you bet you
Yeah.
bet the money line in the first game, you just took the points in the second game.
Yeah, you could do that.
But we said, I remember us saying we thought Baltimore was the best pick
Yeah.
for what the odds were, but we didn't even think that was a good pick because
Did
you
say
just
that.
better off betting that game by game.
Yeah.
But they were like what, 20-1?
I think it was 20-1. And now if it's 2.5, like the biggest spread of the Super Bowl would be Patriots Falcons. True?
Yeah, the Pats, I would say,
We don't have to guess.
depending on what happens
Really
next week, but yeah, it would be
At least a
close to a touchdown.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I think Pats-Niners would be pretty solid Pats by 3, something like that.
Well, that's why I'm saying maybe take the Pats. Maybe take the AFC right now would be the way to go. What situation wouldn't you like the AFC? Even Baltimore.
If I had
San
Baltimore
Fran.
going against San Francisco,
That's the only time, right? Yeah.
San Fran would be favored by like probably 6 or 7.
Well, if you have confidence in your team.
All right, we're going to call Chad Millman.
AFC. All right.
Because we'll talk to you next week.
Good job by you, Billy.
Good job by you. All right, we're going to throw it to a commercial when we come back. Chad Millman, editor of ESPN The Magazine, talking about the Vegas lines for round 3.
Start your 2013 ride at Subway with your own twist on turkey, like the surprisingly low-fat turkey melt. Get it made just the way you say, still 7 grams of fat. Just one bite and you're in Turkeytopia. You so got it made. Subway. Eat fresh.
All right, now we're bringing our Vegas expert, the editor of ESPN The Magazine, who somehow also finds time to write Vegas stuff and call Vegas contacts and keep in touch with people who have nicknames like The Torch and Stonehands. I'm making this up. Chad Millman, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I've enjoyed the first 2 rounds. I'm 6-2 against the spread in my column, which makes me happy.
Yeah.
I had the Ravens upsetting the Broncos in round 2, which made me happy.
Yep.
I got the gift of a Seahawks cover in round 2 when they were down 19 and somehow lost the game but still covered, which never happens for
I'll
a
tell you
line
what.
under 3.
I spent the second half. I'd say the second half of that fourth quarter, just thinking, what are the scenarios in which the Seahawks can still cover? And the only scenario in which they could still cover was game-winning touchdown and they have to win, or game-winning touchdown and somehow the Falcons have a miracle field goal.
30-28 was the way to go.
Yeah.
What was it, 27-7? Yeah. 30-28 was the destination spot for the Atlanta win, but the Seahawks cover.
But the Seahawks
Now,
cover the 2.5.
when something like that happens, most people, if they're betting on the Falcons, they say to themselves, well, there's no need to bet the money line. They're favored by 3. And most teams, if they win, the worst they're going to do is win by 3. They're not going to win by less than that. So I'll take the Falcons -3. What happens in Vegas in this scenario?
Well, Vegas did pretty much fine because they went into the weekend, and this was a game where I think the sophisticated football fan, the people who have been following the last month of the season, who are really paying attention to this, were coming in on the Seahawks. But even going into the weekend, the number of tickets being written were more for the Falcons than for the Seahawks, which was a little bit surprising to me. Because the Seahawks were such a public team, and there was not a lot of affinity for the Falcons with sort of the way they played at the end of the year, and just generally there hasn't been a lot of enthusiasm around sort of their march and their chances for the Super Bowl. And so this was a game that actually didn't kill Vegas at all. The game that really hurt them was the Patriots, just because that game, it went over, and the Patriots covered, and so that's sort of a double whammy. But the Falcons thing, it wasn't that big of a deal.
Well, Vegas did their best to affect that Pats game by paying the refs to call 20 things toward Houston. And I thought it was a noble effort on their part. I mean, the refs did their best.
You know what? It was a rough weekend the weekend before. You got to get it any way you can.
So we had 4 unders in round 1, and then we had 4 overs in round 2. That was weird. And then we had a giant money line win with the Ravens, which was interesting because they were between 10 and 9 all week, getting 10 or 9.5 or 9. But they kept the money line a little bit low, which I thought was interesting. It was like around somewhere between minus 320 and minus 370. It was almost like people were, if you like the Ravens, you just bet them to win, was my take from that. What's your take?
Yeah, and I think what happens is that's often what happens in the playoffs on lines that are that big is you're going to bet the money line. But still, I mean, we're talking about, pittance compared to how much the books actually win when a team like the Broncos, which is the number 1 seed and which is a heavy favorite and which is a team that has Peyton Manning. I mean, they were such a huge, huge public team that no matter how much they were getting on the money line, how much money, whatever liability there was in the money line for the books, didn't really matter because there was so much money on the Broncos. That's a game, and they have some similar strategies going into this weekend. That's a game where they want to have a little bit of money on the Ravens, whether it be the money line or whether it be on the spread, because they're a little bit anxious about how much money they do have on the Broncos.
So it's not just Broncos minus 9 or whatever, but you also have teases. You have money line parlays where people throw the Broncos in there to sweeten the odds a little bit.
Absolutely.
And a best case scenario is Ravens winning by 3 because the Broncos, even 10-point teasers, they lose.
Right.
They lose any money line parlay, and then so that makes sense. I guess that would be good. But and there was an upset in round 1 too, right? Wasn't there? Or no, there wasn't. All the favorites won.
All the favorites won in round 1.
Now, where do you make of this? That and this is something Sal pointed out. I put in Friday's column that before this round 2, there had been 7 straight years where a high favorite of 5 points or more blew it at home in round 2. This had happened every year at least once. And now this year with the Broncos, this is the 8th straight year where a high favorite has blown it.
Well, I'm not surprised.
Trend or something better?
It's an interesting trend, and it's a valuable trend, but I think it's also an indication of the way point spreads are made and the way the public bets, especially in the playoffs. Because at this point in the year, you're talking about teams that everybody is paying attention to. And you're talking about games that are getting a lot of attention. And so the bookmakers are going to make games with point spreads that are a little bit inflated on the higher seeds because those are the games they expect the public to come in on the strongest. And so they're saying, okay, we can get these guys to come in here, and they're covering themselves a little bit because whether or not it's 7 or 8 or 9, between 7 and 10, as we've talked about, those numbers are pretty dead. And so if they decide it's going to be 7.5 and they're going to move off the 7.5 and they go to 8, 8.5, 9, and people are still buying it, not realizing that it's, for the books, it doesn't really matter. And so the numbers inflate a little bit. And then what happens is, so the books get a little bit of money from the wise guys going the other way, and they don't really care because it can't counter all the money they're getting from the public. So I'm not surprised by that at all, especially at the higher seeds, because that's what the bookmakers are intending, is they're inflating these lines a little bit. In the same way that you can't say the Patriots and the Broncos lines were inflated because those are about what the numbers reflected based on what the spreads had been earlier in the year and how those two teams had played against each other. But certainly, they were expecting these teams to get a lot of public action, and so they weren't very worried about the money coming in on the other side. And I think that goes back year to year to year to year.
I thought both AFC lines in round 2 were 2 points too high. And I took the Pats with one of them because I just think they're operating it from a sense of, well, nobody wants to take Matt Schaub on the road. So how high can we put that line to get people to say, okay, fine, I'll take Houston? Because especially with Gronkowski playing hurt and then he ended up getting hurt again, but that line should have been like 7.5. I felt like. But
yeah, but you got to. Well, that's exactly what they're doing. So that's the point. Is they inflate it a little bit, and they say, all right, let's put it here. This is where we think we can get sort of the right amount of public action, and they're not too worried about the wise guys because the wise guys, they're waiting to see if that number is going to get to 10. Because when it gets to 10 is when it's a key number, and then they can start buying back off the 10. And so that's sort of what they're waiting for. And even if the wise guys do decide, okay, I'm going to buy the 9 or 9.5. It's not going to come in at such a rate that is going against or sort of that is balancing the money. I mean, those are games where, the bookmakers are taking a side. They are saying, we need the Texans in this game. In the same way they were saying, we need the Ravens in this game.
So did they do that in the AFC title game with that Pats line? Because I picked 8.5. Even though I thought the line should be 7.5, and it turns out the line was 9. I thought they'd bump it up a point to try to get some Ravens picks. 9 points seems really high, especially considering the Ravens know they can beat this Pats team.
Yeah, I feel like it's where it's supposed to be because they know. Here's the other thing you have to think about. That's the last game of the weekend, so it's the second game of the weekend rather, and so everybody who wins in the early part of the day is going to bet that game, and they're all going to bet the Patriots. Doesn't really matter what the line is, they're going to bet it. So if they put it a little bit higher and they err on the side of getting a little bit more Ravens money, that's fine because come Sunday they're going to get so much Patriots money, it's going to be a huge liability for them if the Patriots end up winning. They're going to need to get a little bit of Ravens money throughout the week so they're not completely exposed come late Sunday night if the Patriots end up covering that number.
You wrote in your column, you posted a column last night about how they came up with the conference championship odds. And you said the San Fran line opened up at 3, but then got bumped to 3.5 almost on air.
Yeah.
So explain what air is.
So air is basically they're moving the number without taking a bet. They're sort of deciding, okay, this is where the action is going to go after they've already posted a number. And this was at the Las Vegas Hotel, which, runs the Super Contest, which you and I do, and used to be called the Hilton. It's sort of the Superbook. And they opened at 3, and sort of the second they opened it, they moved it to 3.5, recognizing that everybody is going to remember how badly the Falcons blew that game and how close they came to losing that game. And that while they won with a field goal in spectacular fashion and sort of did it on 2 plays to drive the length of the field to get in a position to do it, what people are going to remember is that Colin Kaepernick and the 49ers scored 45 points against the Packers, and they beat an Aaron Rodgers team that everybody, including myself, thought was primed to make a run for the Super Bowl because Aaron Rodgers is so good. And so, all of a sudden you've got a team that is coming from west to east that is playing the de facto number 1 seed in the conference, and they're 3.5-point favorites on the road. I don't know that I've ever seen a number 1 seed in this position before. I've been trying to look back and get guys to answer this for me. And
no, it's happened. I think.
When was it?
There's been a couple times where the home team was not favored.
Was it the home team or the number 1 seed? Because I know it was a couple years ago. I think the Bears were 3.5-point dogs to the Packers, and I think the Cardinals were dogs when they went to the Super Bowl. But neither of those teams were number 1 seeds.
I'm going to say in '98. Boy, this is really a signed, sealed confession. I have a gambling problem. In '98, I think both teams were on the road, were underdogs. Let me see, hold on. Or maybe one of them. Broncos at Jets. 1998. Broncos favored. Oh, that was at Denver, though. What was the year? Hold on, I'm sorry. I should have been more prepared for this conversation. I think it's happened, though. I think it's happened a couple times. I know the Pats one year were favored in Indianapolis.
Either way.
Here it is. So, 97, that's the year I was thinking of. Green Bay at San Francisco. Green Bay favored by 1.5 at San Francisco. This is the 98 playoffs.
So the question is, was San Francisco the number 1 seed?
San Francisco was the number 1 seed, it looks like. Yeah.
Wow. So that's going back a few years.
Yeah, it's going back 15. And then the other game, Denver at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was only a 1-point favorite. But yeah, it's 3.5 is ambitious.
It's
for
ambitious.
A road team. I don't ever remember that. I remember 3 and under, but not 3.5.
3.5 is huge. I mean, so consider that. Let's do some bookmaking math for a second. If you put that game on a neutral field, San Francisco is a 6.5 point favorite because it's 3.5 points for sort of the Falcons are getting 3.5 more points just for being at home. You put that game in San Francisco, and the Niners are 9.5 point favorites. They are bigger favorites over the number 1 seed than New England is over the number 4 seed at home. That's
wow.
I mean, that's an indication of how little money the bookmakers expect to be getting on the Falcons and how little attention is being paid to them by the public. I mean, the Niners did something that is astonishing, is they were a trending public team that beat up the public team in the Packers. And so there's going to be a huge, huge amount of money that comes in on the 49ers, and they're just trying to sort of guard against being overly exposed. You know, the books don't mind having a side, and we've talked about this before too, is they don't mind taking action, and they don't mind sort of exposing themselves, but they still have to be responsible. And so,
hey, you want to have a good time?
A responsible line, yeah.
ProFootballReference.com now has spreads for all the games, like dating back to 1990 or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
Everyone's doing it.
It's pretty fun. It's fun looking back at those playoff games.
It is awesome to look back at those.
Quickly, where do you feel, because we got to get to Lombardi, where do you feel Vegas is heading for these two games, or what are they hoping for? What do they think is going to happen?
Oh, I think that if the Atlanta game gets to 4, then you're going to see the wise guys take the 4, and I think if the New England game gets to 10, then you're going to see the wise guys take the 10, but I think it's going to settle pretty much where it is. I think, if anything, San Francisco is going to go higher. I think Baltimore, New England is going to stay where it is.
Really?
Yeah.
I think Baltimore, New England's going to drop. I think it lands at 7.5.
Maybe come Sunday afternoon. I'm thinking over the course of these 3 or 4 days, I don't think it moves very much. But come Sunday afternoon, it definitely could, because there'll be some sentiment. You know, it's like you always get that sentiment, like over the course of the week, people convince themselves that the big underdog is going to win.
Yeah.
So you could see that. I actually feel like, I don't know, I think the Ravens are going to win.
I think it's going to be a close game. I think it lands at 7.5. I think San Francisco lands at 3.5. I think they put that extra half point in there to make you think long and hard about taking San Francisco on the road. Yeah. I don't think it gets to 4.
I think it's going to get to 4, and I think the wise guys are going to pounce.
I think it might get to 4, but I don't think it settles there. 4 is too high. Because Atlanta can throw the ball. They can do stuff. 4 is too high. I think 4
is way too high, but you know, it's not everybody's thinking about in terms of value. People are thinking about it in terms of, all right, I've seen San Francisco beat up the Niners, and I haven't seen Atlanta do anything, so they're not thinking, where's the value? I mean, you think about it there's much more public money than wise guy money on these playoff games, and so that's why the number ends up moving. And so if some wise guys come in and buy back the 4, that's only going to make it a little bit easier for the bookmakers because they can balance it out a little bit.
So the only public team left is the Pats.
The only traditional public team is the Pats. I would say the Niners are a public team this season and last season. But I
disagree, because then why weren't they favored by more than 3 over Green Bay? If they were a public team, they should have been favored by at least 3.5 in that game.
Because Green Bay is a bigger public team. Green Bay.
So you think they out-public teamed the Niners?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. They out-public teamed the Niners. That's why I'm telling you, that's why the Niners are such a big favorite against the Falcons right now, because people who only know about the Packers saw the Niners beat up the Packers, and now they're thinking, oh, well, the Niners are great because I thought the Packers were the best. And so now the Niners are sort of they've been a public team all year. The Packers were just, you know, the Packers and the Patriots and the Cowboys and the Steelers and the Bears, those are the teams that are like the public teams. No matter what the number is, people are going to bet them. San Francisco needs to be good and get some attention to get some public action like this. Now they're sort of trending, and they're sort of the secondary public team after New England.
Chad Millman, we will talk to you after we know the Super Bowl line. Thanks for your time, as always.
All right, brother. Talk to you later.
See you.
Bye.
You know what? We're going to take this to a part 2. If you want to hear Mike Lombardi, part 2 of the BS Report, you can find on iTunes, Grantland.com, or ESPN.com's Pod Center. See you there.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.